Where's everyone from?
Thanks, Bob.
Let's get to know everybody, starting from the back.
Salt Lake.
Salt Lake. And your name?
Audrey.
Audrey.
I'm Kirsten and I'm from North Phoenix.
Kirsten from North Phoenix.
Yeah.
Laura, and I'm currently from Phoenix.
Laura.
Monica.
Local.
Carol Sedona.
Carol Savannah.
Sandy Gilbert, Arizona.
Liz, Phoenix.
Lee.
Jane San Diego.
Brittany, San Diego.
Bob from Pennsylvania. Brian from California.
San Diego. Oops.
In order to first start, okay, I want to do a little exercise with you guys. And maybe get us in a good frame of mind. Alright? But I want to do a little experiment. Alright? If everybody can sit down, put your feet in front of you. Rest your hands in front of you. Like this. Okay? Back straight. Now, I want you to turn to your left. And as far as you can, as far as your body without turning your legs, look and mark a spot wherever it is that you can see you furthest to your left. Mark that spot, remember it, what it looks like. Try to look as far as you can. Now you remember the spot that you saw. Okay, now look forward again. Alright? I want you to breathe. I want you to imagine yourself lying along the side of a babbling brook. You could feel the water gurgling over the rocks. You could feel the cool grass on your body and your back. You feel the sun streaming down, filtering through the leaves of the willow tree hanging over you, providing you shade. You smell the warm flower blossoms of summer. And you are very relaxed. Now, open your eyes. Turn as far as you can to the left. How many of you passed the spot? Just about everyone. Just to show you the power of your mind. And your mind and your body, they work in conjunction together. And it's going to be a key part of what we're going to present today, because a lot of things that we perceive in our minds as limitations, control, can be overcome also with the mind, when you hold the right place. Okay? Now I'm going to ask you all another question. How many billionaires do we have in the audience? Very wealthy, rich people? No hands?
Oh, Brian.
Okay.
Are we talking dollars?
Yeah.
Good question.
Yeah, like, I got a lot of energy.
We're going to make this as interactive as possible, so if you have questions during, raise your hand, speak out, throw something at me, or him. And we will try to address. We have about an hour and a half, and honestly, we could
We actually
probably...
got 2 hours.
Oh, we do?
Yeah.
We could probably talk for a few hours on any one of the topics that we're going to discuss. But...
So, excellent exercise. First of all, thank you all for being here and taking the time out of your day to come to our workshop when there's so many great offerings at this conference. My name's Brian Kelly. Some of you know me from some of the work that I've been doing since December. Some of you probably don't know me or Bob at all, but you liked the title of the workshop today. Either way, we're glad you're here. We're hoping to make, like Bob said, this as interactive as possible. We don't want this to be a lecture today. We don't want to cram information down people's throats. We want everybody to walk away with more data that they can use for their daily lives, drawing on our own conclusions, right? I tell people, I don't want you to think like me. I just want you to think. And you know, part of being awake and aware, we call it awake and aware, right, is a great deal of self-responsibility. And it's not easy being out in the world, trying to relate with others when we feel that they, you know, the guy that wakes up every morning and turns on CNN, goes to work 9 to 5, turns on Anderson Cooper at the end of the day, checks his stocks, puts his kids to bed, and you know, and has very little as far as awareness for much of what we know is really going on behind the veil and within, most importantly, right? Because everything we experience outside of ourselves is a reflection of what we're experiencing from within, and we're all on our own path and on our own individual journey. No one's either farther or shorter along. Everybody's just in their own space, in their own place. And some of the concepts we're going to share today are going to be familiar to some of you. Some of them are going to be very brand new. Bob and I have been working together since December, January, and we...
Seems like forever.
Yeah, many lifetimes. Many incarnations, I'm sure. In density in this lifetime since December, since January. And we do a couple of radio shows every week on Blog Talk Radio for 2 hours a night on Monday and Tuesday. And then we each have our own individual shows for an additional 2 hours. And then we both have our own blogs and all the other fun stuff that we participate in. But a common thread that we have is we are all bona fide, hardcore truth seekers. You know, we just want to know what's going on in this world, and we want to be on the front lines of the information, because the more data we have available to us, the easier it allows us to make decisions that are in our own highest good and best interest for our greatest growth. And so the more we know about what's going on in the world, the more that we are able to see illusions for what they are and our perceptions for what they are. The stronger we become within, because we have all the information that we need to make decisions that allow us to stand in our truth, stand in our light, and not really worry about what anybody has to say about what we're doing, because we are confident. We love ourselves. We're confident enough with ourselves to be in our space without fear of judgment, right? So, go ahead.
Question. All of you now, some of you are, I heard are local, and for you being at this conference says a lot about you already. You're already at some level of awareness. Otherwise, you would not be here at a lecture listening to somebody like me and Brian. If I can get a feel, how many of you are here because you recognize that something was wrong with the world and you want to make it better? Has any of you, how many of you have, how far down the rabbit hole? I'm trying to get a feel for this audience. How far down the rabbit hole?
Scale of 1 to 10.
Pretty far.
11.
I'm about a 25.
20. Because we can take this conversation very, very far down the rabbit hole, and I just want to get a feel for, you know, where you guys are and the journey that you've made, because we've gone really, really far down this rabbit hole.
We're not that good at skimming the surface anymore.
Yeah. And I don't want to go on assumptions that you already understand certain things. So please, if you have a question, we say something that you're not familiar with or that you don't understand, please stop us. What does that mean? What are you talking about? Let us know, and we will help to bring you back up to speed so everybody's on the same page. Okay?
Cool. Let's start with a video.
Yeah.
Can you dim the lights? Because I'm dim lights. Pour for war.
You're afraid of us. You're afraid of change. I don't know the future. I didn't come here to tell you how this is going to end. I came here to tell you how it's going to begin. I'm going to hang up this phone, and then I'm going to show these people what you don't want them to see. I'm going to show them a world without you. A world without rules and controls, without borders or boundaries. A world where anything is possible. Where we go from there is a choice I leave to you.
All right. Anybody else get the chills?
Everybody seen the Matrix movies? Brilliant movies.
Okay, we can flip the lights back on for a second. So, this workshop is called Unshackling the Matrix, and the tagline is dissolving the illusion of money and control. So, in order to be able to really get a foundation here, we have to have a discussion about what the Matrix is. So, I'm just going to ask the question, and people can just shout out. What are some of the things that we feel, those of us that have gone, like Bob says, deep down the rabbit hole, what is it that makes up this reality, this matrix? Does anybody want to take a go? There's no wrong answer. Go ahead, Wendy.
Well, I'm also a radio talk show host.
Awesome.
It's everything and anything right now. Because everything is, ever since we hit 2012, which is a conscious awareness on a higher level of consciousness on all 5 major institutions, physically, mentally, and spiritually, everyone is experiencing this. Whether you like it or not, it's happening. And the thing is to try to be balanced about this. When things are happening, don't panic. Look at the situation, try to come up with what you feel you can do, just as you're, and that way you'll have a little comfort zone, because it can get like absolute crazy, and I know that very well.
Okay, very good. Anybody else?
It seems like it runs on fear.
Mm.
Emotions, a lot of emotions, highs and lows, and manipulation of emotions.
When you say it runs on fear,
Well, things that are in place to keep people who are aware or not aware in a state of fear, kind of feeds the strength, possibly.
would you say perceived systems of control?
Perceived, sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Yes, Luke.
Yeah, I'm just in utter confusion because I'm not super deep into the rat hole, but I'm aware of it. You know what I mean? And it's like I'm just
First of all, we all avoid rat holes if we can.
a rat
Rabbit holes we like.
I'm still drinking my coffee.
Yeah. Good morning.
No, seriously though, I mean, I'm just so confused. It's like I don't know what the truth is or not. And that's,
Okay.
I think it's
And
just
Luke, I'm so glad you said that, because that response represents a large percentage of the population, right? So those of us in this room would be deemed by some as the crazy ones, but when we look in our mirror, and when we look in the mirror, we see ourselves as the ones who get it. And if we don't yet, then that's really the bridge that we're trying to get to. And it doesn't matter if people think you're crazy or not. But the Matrix.
The Matrix.
The Matrix.
I'm holding up something here. What? Can anybody identify this?
that's
Monopoly
fine.
money.
Federal Reserve.
It's a piece of paper.
Piece of paper. Monopoly money. Federal Reserve note. Anything else? And how does this relate to the Matrix? Now, control. Lee, perfect. This is what is used by and large as a mechanism of control, and I'll tell you how. If anybody pulls out a bill, and somebody said Federal Reserve note, monopoly money, so I know you've been down that portion of the rabbit hole already. But for those of you who have not, take a look at any bill that you have. And on the front of it, at the top, you'll find that it says, it is, like Liz said, a Federal Reserve note. Does anybody know what a bank note is?
It's an instrument, actually.
A negotiable instrument, very good.
Promise to pay.
An IOU?
An IOU,
Exactly.
right? It is a promise to pay, okay? This, what you think, or we have been led to think of as money, is not. It is an instrument of debt. It, in fact, is a bill. Those things that you dread getting in the mail, right? That's what this is. It is a $20 bill. If you had to measure this as value, you would have to start at 0 and go backwards, negative. Okay? This is negative value. And this is what everyone has been fighting over, struggling to get more of, right? Because every time you spend one of these, guess what? Someone is in debt. It's a bill to someone. Now, who is this a bill to? Does anyone know?
The American taxpayer. I apologize, Bob.
No, please.
For every dollar that they print, they charge the American people $2. So, in 1933, when this came about, even though it was voted in 1913, when the Social Security agency came in, the IRS agency and income tax came in. So, when you receive the Federal Reserve notes, which is also an instrument, a bill of debt, like Bob is talking about, and Brian, they charge the American people $2. Now, you think as a good person, you pay your taxes at the end of the year to the income tax. But the thing about it is, the IRS is a left arm of the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is owned by foreign banks in foreign countries. So, at the end of the year, when you pay your $20 or $30 or $30 million, not a dime goes to the American people. It goes to the Federal Reserve. So the national debt can never be paid until you get rid of the Federal Reserve. That's the fact, Jack.
She's very right.
She's right.
The Federal Reserve, okay, whenever somebody prints an IOU or a promissory note, okay, whoever it is that issues that note is the one that is making the promise. And here, this is a Federal Reserve note. So the Federal Reserve is promising to pay. This is an IOU, okay? The Federal Reserve owes you. Now, how can they owe you something if they hadn't taken something from you first? What is it that they took from you that allows them to print all of these trillions of IOUs and trillions? They owe you trillions of dollars. What did they take from you?
Yep.
Can anybody identify what this is? Is that all it is? What is a birth certificate? This happens to be Brian's birth certificate, by the way. And you may not be able to see on here, I'm sure you can. But right down here, in really, really small print, it says Midwest Bank Note Company. This,
Let me see. By the way, if I were to pass this around, which I will,
please.
you probably will notice that when you look at that that birth certificate, the Freudian slip, it's printed so small that to the naked eye, no one would ever notice it. And when I put this out on my blog, it was like gangbuster for people to find their birth certificates. Because why, you have to ask the question, if you're looking around through that thing, the things that will stick out are not the things they want you to see. The things that they don't want you to see are your date of registration, for when the child that was born, the date they were registered with the state, and the paper that it's printed on. And here's why. Why on earth would a company called American or Midwest Banknote Company be printing birth certificates?
Wendy.
Wendy.
Wendy, you're gonna be our go-to girl.
You're a commodity on the New York Stock Exchange, and every day they sell your birth certificate on the New York Stock Exchange for your human resources. It's the fact, Jack. And it's a very sad thing. A lot of us have found out about it and talk about it all the time too. So it's great to have Brian and Bob here talking about it with you because it will enlighten you. And you know, I know it's sometimes a very scary thing because boy, this is a hard thing to grasp. Thinking, how is this possible? But the New World Order and the guys, Power of the Bee, they did it. But the thing about this is that you have a soul and a heart and a brain. Don't let them take it from you. That's what they want. So keep it always to yourself and close to your heart. And believe it or not, the powers that be, the higher level of consciousness and the universe will help you out more times than none.
And I would encourage, as we're going through this, take notes if you wish. Do the research. Don't take our word for it. Because the first time I heard this, no.
Screw you.
No flipping way. No way. This is not real. Not my country, not my government. No. There was a lot of denial. Do the research, and the more I started to do the research, I was like,
So the biggest thing here, and I'm gonna explain real quick, but what we hope for everybody to come away with today is the understanding that the control, that we don't call them the powers that be. If anything, they're the powers that were, because they no longer are powerful. We actually refer to them as our partners in contrast. Because they are soul living, breathing beings just like us, and they hold the contrast for duality and polarity to be known so that we can know light from dark, right? So the just to kind of now we've had whole radio shows where we talk about nothing but this one point, so we're not going to spend too much time on it. Birth certificate is a bond, as Wendy said, and it is traded on the stock market. And the reason for that, I'm not going to ask because Wendy, I know you're going to know it, but I'm going to share it, is that because when this country, a lot of people don't know this, but in 1871, our government became a government no more. They bought belly up, and so they incorporated. So the United States of America organic government, people could argue that it wasn't all that organic even back then, became the United States of America Corporation. And when they became the corporation, corporations everything is based on profit. It's all based on profitability. So in 1913, which parlayed over into 1933, they couldn't pay their debt anymore to the Federal Reserve. So the Federal Reserve said, okay, we don't want you to go belly up. Let's strike a deal. What do we need to do to keep this country moving forward? And if you read it in the history books, you're going to get a lot different than the reality of what happened, right? So there's a meeting of the minds. They got together and they said, well, you can't afford to pay us anymore because you're bankrupt. So what do you have that's valuable? Because you don't have any money. So what do you have that's valuable? What did they have? They had Bob, they had Brian, they had Wendy, Brittany, Jane, and everybody else in this room. Why are we valuable? Anybody want to take a shot at that?
Work for them.
Because we work. So they said, we will keep extending credit, not money, into the system so long as you give us something to back it with, which ultimately became our labor. So what is it, we'll ask the question, what is it that makes this bill, this Federal Reserve note, what is it that gives this thing value? Why is it valuable? There's no gold or silver, precious metals or anything like that backs it anymore. Why is this bill valuable? Why do we give so much energy into this? Because it's our labor. It's our beingness, it's our doing, it's the goods that we create, it's the services that we offer.
It's our spirit,
It's
it's
our
our
energy. Our energy makes this valuable. If everybody in this room and all 625 million people in this country stopped working this morning, how far would this go?
How far does it go now?
Let's pretend this is 100. How far would it go? It would be good for one thing. If we get cold, we can light a fire with it. That's it. So when we go back to the original question of what is the matrix, we're going to go into a story of a guy that we met the other day. But this is the biggest component of what the matrix is.
Now, I asked the question earlier, how many of you are billionaires, independently wealthy?
Natasha, can I borrow $1,000?
What if I told you, as soon as you came out of your mother's birth canal, you were a multi-billionaire, literally, worth billions. Actually, you are allotted infinite credit at birth. Because here's Lee sitting here. When Lee's born, I have no idea if he's going to discover the next mode of transportation, interstellar travel. I have no idea whether she might discover the cure of all human disease, right? You have limitless potential, infinite potential. And therefore you are granted infinite credit on birth. That credit is monetized and securitized through your registration of your birth. Now, when you register something, okay, you're talking about ownership. You've heard about signing your soul away. We do that with each of our children, unknowingly, because we feel that we're required to do so. We register our child with the state. They then become an asset of the state, which is also a corporation, a sub-corporation of the United States Corporation, which President Obama is president of that corporation. And if you do not treat your child in a certain way, you don't put him through the state-run school system, you don't get them vaccinated by the state-run pharmaceutical companies, you don't do what the state tells you, they will take your children away because they do not belong to you.
What happens when you own a home and you don't pay your taxes? What do they do with the home? What happens if you have a vehicle and you register it? Who owns that vehicle? The state owns it, right?
If you don't pay your tags and fees and stuff, they will tow your car and keep it. So this whole idea of, well, I own my own body and these are my children, my car, my house, is really an illusion. You own nothing, not even yourselves.
Ready for video two?
Ready for video too.
Can somebody do lights again with death?
We borrow money from banks because we believe the bank has the money and we don't. What if what we were taught was not the whole truth? How would that affect your mortgage, your loan, or credit card?
You're talking about things which aren't the problem. The problem that we have is a flawed banking system, a fractional reserve banking system, where bankers can lend money that they don't have. And if you go back in time to the United States in the 1850s, that was a capital offense. You could hang for that.
Hang on a minute. Banks lending money they don't even have? How does that work? In an International Monetary Fund working paper we find the following. Under the present system, Banks do not have to wait for depositors to appear and make funds available before they can on-lend. This fact can be verified in the description of the money creation system in many central bank statements. Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago states, what they do when they make loans is to accept promissory notes in exchange for credits to the borrower's transaction accounts. The Bank of England's quarterly bulletin of 2008 states, banks extend credit by creating money. The Federal Reserve Bank of New York publication, I Bet You Thought, states, commercial banks create checkbook money whenever they grant a loan, simply by adding new deposit dollars to accounts on their books in exchange for a borrower's IOU. The Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas's publication, Money and Banking, states, banks actually create money when they lend it. So the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago, New York and Dallas, plus the Bank of England, all create money when they lend it. Former attorney of the Federal Reserve Bank of Cleveland states, banks deposit promissory notes with the intent of treating them like deposits of cash. If banks deposit your promissory note as cash, for the ledger to balance, the same value must be paid out. If the sum paid out is the loan drawdown, the ledger is balanced. So who owned the money that funded the loan drawdown? The Federal Reserve Bank of New York, the IMF and at least 4 others state your promissory note was the source. If your bank does this, why are you forced to repay them month after month, year after year? If your bank is not doing what those major banks do, your bank should be able to produce documentation of prior title, ownership, and rights to the money they purportedly loaned you. And remember, the IMF working paper states, it is obvious to anybody who has ever lent money and created the resulting book entries.
So, Commissioner, you talk about banks' ability to withstand shocks. Well, by this definition, by your definition, a shock is people turning up wanting their money back.
So the question is, did you borrow money that was earned over the course of years and years of hard work? Or did you borrow your own promise deposited as cash that was created in milliseconds? Put another way, did they loan money they had in the bank before you walked in the door? Or did they loan money they created after you walked in the door?
What we've actually had here is criminal activity by bankers, and not a single banker has been sent to prison. This is extraordinary. Billions of pounds have been taken away from taxpayers, taken away from depositors, bondholders, and yet not a single banker is in jail. This is a disgrace. This is a disgrace. We really have to use the law of the land, not so much regulation, and printing money. And central banks are equally culpable, make no mistake. I'd like to see some central bankers in prison. And I call quantitative easing counterfeiting. Printing money is counterfeit. It's illegal. If a private citizen did it, they would go to jail. So let's look into our own hearts. The very unpleasant arrangements that politicians, bureaucrats and central bankers have between themselves at the expense of the taxpayer. Let's end it, and let's end it now.
Now, I want to go through a scenario with you based on what you just heard. When you go into a bank, let's say you want to buy a house, okay? You have an account in your name that is secured and held by the Federal Reserve System. So you go into the bank, right?
This is what creates that account, by the way.
Yeah. And you all have an account number. It's a 9-digit number. You're probably familiar with it. Okay. You go into the bank, and the first thing they're going to want you to do is to sign a promissory note. Okay? A promise to pay. You call it a mortgage, or if it's a car, it's a bank. It's a car, loan application. And with that promissory note, they can go now to the Federal Reserve Bank and say, look, this person says that they owe me this money, okay? Can I access their account? Sure, you have access to their account. This promissory note is as good as cash. because you have infinite credit.
So as soon as you give them the social security number and you're identifying yourself,
As soon as you
give-
sign your
you're giving them
name,
permission.
Your signature.
you're giving them permission to access
You don't know
your
you're giving them
collateral
permission, but
account.
you are.
No,
Yes.
Okay, and that's where the lie is.
So,
They never told us.
many more too.
how much credit do you have?
I know,
You
I'm
have
just helping
infinite
you out
credit.
here.
You're asking for $125,000 for, they get paid. The bank gets paid because they presented a promissory note from you, giving you them permission to access your account. Then they give you your own money.
Right.
You have just borrowed your own money, right? And then they make you pay it back with interest.
By the way, for those of you taking notes, look up House Joint Resolution 192.
That's right.
It will show in there everything, all the secrets that they don't want people to know are hidden in plain sight.
What was it called again?
It's the same with the traffic
Because
ticket.
they have, it's House Joint Resolution 192.
How many of you have ever gotten a traffic ticket?
Just the other day.
What do they want you to do?
Admit.
They want you to sign
Sign your-
that ticket. Why? Because as soon as you sign it, they're going to the bank. They're getting paid. Now this is what I was like. I was angry. That was my first reaction. I was angry. It's usually everyone's, no way. You know, they repossessed my car and all this other stuff, and it was mine to begin with. You know, every court case, right? You are what? Charged. Same thing. Every application that you sign your name to, they're making money off of your trust account, which you are the beneficiary of.
Now think what happens when 625 million Americans are made aware of these truths. Bob and I met a guy, an angel really, sent to us yesterday while we were at the pool at the RV park. Some of you know we're on tour right now across country to connect with people and share information. And this gentleman, Bobby, his son had just committed suicide a week before. Very heavy. And as a parent, he's making sense of this, this loss. He had prepared for his grandparents to pass, his parents, but never do you go, as a parent, go through what you'll do if you lose your child first. His son committed suicide because of the pressure of debt and finances. Now, when you start to really cut it up, you go about, let's just call it the average American. Let's go for the average American college student, okay? You rack up an average of $30,000, average. Some much more, some a little bit less. But the average across the board is $30,000 in credit card debt. You tack on whatever you spend by way of credit cards. I maxed all mine out in college. I don't know if anybody else did the same. And you got another about $5,000 or $10,000 worth of debt right there. After you graduate, you get into the workforce. What's one of the first things you do when you can afford it? Maybe not right now so much because of the economy, but you buy a house. The average loan for a home in the United States is $175,000. California and Arizona, that's probably a lot more than that. I think Southern California, it's like $325,000 or something. Then you got your car. What's that, another $15,000, $20,000? So you are essentially, at the age of 25, in debt to banks, borrowing your own money, paying how much just to stay afloat? Just to pay your interest. How long does it take to pay off that debt?
Retirement.
Right? So if that, the average mortgage, how long?
30 years.
30 years. How many people actually pay off a home in 30 years? What do people typically do?
Remortgage.
Refinance. So from a bank's perspective, what else do they need to do to hook you in? That's it, they got you. This is where the term debt slavery comes from. Because we are fed the illusion in this country that we're free. We have the ability to be free. I can tell you Bob's free, I'm free, there's probably some of the people in this room that are very free. But there are a lot of people out there that still are in the shackles of the illusion of the control of the slavery that they have to their debt. With awareness comes opportunity. So how did we get here, right? Think about when we inhabited this earth. You know, it was this lush land, waterfalls and lakes and relationships and community. And it was gorgeous and beautiful. People working together, creating and living and being and doing. And then all of a sudden, this fascination with gold takes place. And everyone goes, "Ooh, this is so pretty." And there's not a lot of it. Well, there was, but they didn't know that. And they started collecting it, right? "Oh my God, I got all this gold. You know, I'm so much more valuable than you because I have more gold than you do." And they putting it in their pockets, walking around, throwing it over their backs, thinking, "Oh my God, this gold is heavy."
These are only representations of your value. Gold is a representation of the real value. Because honestly, if you were on a desert island stranded and you had a big, huge chest full of gold, what good is it going to do you? Would you trade that chest of gold for another human being?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you can't even ask. So people say fiat currency, it's not valuable because it's not backed by gold. Well, we could ask the same thing of gold. Why is gold valuable? What's backing the gold? Is there more gold that's backing the gold? Or silver or some awesome other element on this planet or beyond that's backing that gold to make it valuable? No, it's a representation of true value. The only true value is in our soul, is in our spirit, is in the land.
Now I'm going to ask a painful question. Maybe it might be painful. How many of you are paying a perceived debt right now?
I'm
What
2
if I
months away
told
from
you
freedom.
you have
2 months away, we'll come back to
No.
that comment.
debt? You have no debt.
I got completely out, sold my homes, got rid of all that. Core piece.
This is why it's impossible for you to be in debt because you are the only holders of true value. The bank doesn't own any of it. The government doesn't own any of it. It's yours. So how do you get out? How do you, now that you understand what we're into, how do you get out? How do you free yourself? Brian?
Oh, you're asking me?
First off, you have to be aware of what's going on. Aware of how the system works, right? Because when you're dealing with corporations, right, any corporation, including the United States government, federal government, or whatever country that you belong to, they're all corporations. Corporations are dead entities. That's why it's called corpse, okay? It's a dead entity. And as a corporation, corporations operate on policies, statutes, and codes. Now, policies, statutes, and codes are given the weight of law by the consent of those governed. Without your consent, they have no power. They will try to intimidate you to get your consent. They will try to threaten you, right, to get your consent. Sign the papers. We have ways to make you sign the papers. Right? And it's all intimidation. But if you don't sign that paper, guess what? All their power's gone. No more can they take your value. You become a weight to them. You know? Watch what happens if you don't sign that traffic ticket. Nothing.
But they threaten you with arrest.
They can threaten you with arrest.
So let me ask a question. When you were born, do you remember signing a document that said, I consent to these systems and these rules and this society that I'm being born into? You don't remember signing anything? Maybe you were too young and you just can't remember it. You put a little baby pen in your hand. As you were growing up and you got to the age where you were aware of what was going on, you could make conscious choices, conscious decisions. Do you remember someone showing up at your door, knocking and saying, now that you're old enough, we need you to go ahead and sign this document saying that you consent to these rules, regulations, statutes, and codes? Because since 1871, there has been no addition of law in this country. Why? Because a corporation cannot create a law. They can create a policy, they can create a statute, they can create a code, but they cannot create a law. And since the people are governed by their consent, it requires each of us to say, yes, we will comply. Yes, we will sign, and by our signature, we agree to contract with you, because all corporations have to act and abide by the rules of commerce, because it's the rules of commerce that govern how corporations can deal with one another. So let me ask you a question real quick, Bob, before you go. Knowing this now, you get pulled over, and the police officer wants your signature, right? But you're now aware. What would still drive you to sign that ticket?
To answer the question, it just happened.
Okay.
I was late for class. I was taking a writing class in Western New York, and I was speeding. So.
How dare you?
Okay. I was late.
You sick man.
Yeah. No, but I was late, and I broke. Did I break the law, or did I break a statute? What did I break?
You had a policy officer stop you.
Yes.
Okay, that's what a police officer is. It's a policy enforcement. They are enforcing corporate policy. Now, let's say you work for IBM, and IBM has a particular dress code.
Yes.
Okay?
Can't wear sneakers at work or something.
Right.
Okay.
And a representative of Xerox comes to your door and says, hey, you can't wear that on Friday. That's not according to our policy. You're like, well, I don't work for you. Well, how are you enforcing your policy if I don't work for you? Now, I'm going to ask you each a question. You know, how many of you are married? Now, if you're married, right, you have a marriage also certificate, which is also another bond, by the way. If you fell in love with someone else, right, even with their consent, can you create another bond, marriage bond, without terminating the first one? No matter what country you go in, that second marriage is invalid until the first one is terminated. Who is your first bond with? Your Creator. Your first bond is with your Creator. It's the only one you have obligation to. Any bond created thereafter, you cannot serve two masters. People misunderstand what was actually trying to be said there. You cannot serve two masters. If you're bonded by your creator, any bond made after that, whether it is by your consent or not, is invalid unless you've terminated the first bond.
Anybody sell their soul in here yet?
They can't have it yet.
All bonds still valid. So, go ahead, Bob.
That simple statement, you know, I'm a bond servant of my creator. I answer to no one but the creator. Who are you? Who are you? Where's your authority? What authority do you have over me? And when did I give you consent to have authority over me? Because as far as I can see, I just see another human. Show me where my signature is. Show me the agreement that I made.
What about when there's harm though? What if I hurt somebody when I was speeding?
Well, then you're responsible.
Yep.
Right.
Everybody's
I'm just being
responsible.
Common law.
Yeah.
Common law.
Yeah.
Common law.
Right. Do unto others as you want
Yes.
done to you.
Yeah. Don't harm another person or their property.
Right.
And you're
But-
in the clear.
In your case, when you were speeding, where was the victim? How, in what way was the state harmed? What damage did you cause?
No, it's an opportunity for them to take money from me. That's what it was.
Yeah. Luke.
Question, so when you say they don't have any legislation over you or any authority over you, well then what about that birth certificate at birth?
That birth certificate is invalid unless you have signed your soul away from your first bond to your creator. That was given, that bond was created without your consent, number one, because you were an infant.
But can you argue that in
Oh,
court?
sure you can.
Absolutely. But
Absolutely.
Did you
what
talk about the straw
legitimacy,
man?
hold on real quick. What legitimacy,
Talk about
what
straw
true
man?
legitimacy does a court have over a
I saw.
soul? They don't. Because courts also have to operate in commerce. Courts cannot contract with a soul. Courts have to contract with what's called a corporate fiction. When you get a birth certificate,
A
what is
company
created
is created in your name.
is a corporate fiction. So when a judge has you come into the court and he says, "Do you understand?" People think, well, yeah, I understand what he's saying, but that's not what's happening. What's happening is he's saying, "Do you stand under
My authority.
my authority?" So when you say yes, you are creating a verbal contract to abide by the laws, or excuse me, rules, statutes, and codes of the court.
They literally created another language to fool you. It's called legalese.
Question.
It's the same. That's weird.
It's weird. So I'm gonna play another video if we can dim the lights because
That's how
it's-
that's deception in itself. Right there.
Yeah.
That's how
Yeah.
they did it.
This one is funny and irritating too.
And their parents didn't have the consent either. They didn't knowingly give consent.
No.
Master, I have, it's very bad news. Shibu, there is just news. There is no good or bad. Master, your vision was right. Tai Lung has broken out of prison. He's on his way. That is bad news. If you do not believe that the Dragon Warrior can stop him. The panda? Master, that panda is not the Dragon Warrior. He wasn't even meant to be here. It was an accident. There are no accidents. Yes, I know. You've said that already. Twice. Well, that was no accident either. My old friend, the panda will never fulfill his destiny, nor you yours, until you let go of the illusion of control. Illusion? Yes. Look at this tree, Seafood. I cannot make it blossom when it suits me, nor make it bear fruit before its time. But there are things we can control. I can control when the fruit will fall. And I can control where to plant the seed. Hiya! That is no illusion, Master. Ah, yes. But no matter what you do, that seed will grow to be a peach tree. You may wish for an apple or an orange, but you will get a peach. But a peach cannot defeat Tai Lung. Maybe it can, if you are willing to guide it, to nurture it, to believe in it. But how? How? I need your help, Master. No, you just need to believe. Promise me, Shifu. Promise me you will believe. I will try. Good. My time has come. You must continue your journey without me. What are you, what? Master! You can't leave me! You must believe. Master!
Moral of the story? What is it?
Illusion of control.
Top left. Yes! That's not wrong either. You must believe, absolutely. Control. What is control? Is there any police officer, judge, bank in this room handcuffing us right now? At this moment? At this moment. So would you say at this moment, now I'll give the example when, if you are in that situation, but in this moment, is there any real control? Or is it all a perception of control?
I think it's kind of both, physically, mentally, and spiritually. But if you can try to, again, find some balance for it, a balance of the control of what they have over you and balance of your life, then you can control them instead of them controlling you.
Can't control anyone.
You can't control anything.
No, I know, but I mean.
Any of you who have kids? You can make rules, but ultimately people are going to do what they're going to do. You know, no one really has control over another person's actions. Okay? People can acquiesce. You know, they can acquiesce their power through intimidation or by force. Okay? But even that's not a control. Because what's up here, what you believe, what you understand, right, cannot be controlled. What you know cannot be controlled. Okay? And ultimately, this is where all action takes place. First. Everything that you do based on what you believe to be true. And this whole system operates and can only operate with your implicit cooperation. And cooperation amongst a whole bunch of other systems. Judicial, governmental, educational, pharmaceutical.
Financial.
All of them are cooperating together. But if one element in that whole system fails to cooperate, guess what? You stop that one gear, the whole machine stops. And that gear is you. That gear, at some point, someone has got to put their body against the gears and stop it. That takes courage. It takes conviction, right? And it takes someone standing in their power. And many people have done that, you know. Many people have even lost their lives because of doing that. But they've paved the way that this awareness is now spreading. And that's what we're doing on this tour, spreading this awareness. I have not paid taxes since 2004. I have not paid any of my traffic fines, car loans, or any of those things since that time either. I'm currently working on, I haven't paid my electric bill. Oh God. Since last November. I still have electricity, by the way, because I sent them a list of questions that they're still trying to answer, and every time they threaten to, this is in debate, you can't shut this off until you answer these questions, you know? And you start asking people these questions, you're gonna start to get them to think. I have a couple conversations that I've recorded that you can find online with my bank, you know, where I ask them some very pointed questions. Can you show me the origin of funds of anything that you proposedly lent to anyone at any time?
What do you think he gets back?
Huh?
Crickets. Pen drop, you know.
No, do you have rights entitled to any funds that you're purportedly lending out? And if you don't have rights entitled, what are you lending? Silence. Mr. Wright, I'm not going to entertain that question. Why? It's a valid question, you know? And literally, I get them to admit that they're breaking the law. And I do it on tape.
Guilty of
it's like,
treason.
Look, if you're going to dishonor, you know, if you're going to dishonor my value, right, then you're going to be breaking the law, and you're going to do so publicly because I'm going to tell the whole world. Right? And perhaps, you know, they're still going to do what they're going to do. I have no control over what they do. But they're going to know, and it's going to be public, that they are the criminals and not I.
So it comes down to perception. You could have a guy who's been on the truth movement circuit for 30 some odd years. And he could be like, oh my God, these damn Illuminati Kabbalist bankers are just getting at me, and this sucks, and we gotta fix it, and oh my God, what the hell are we gonna do? We're doomed! Oh my God, you know? And then you have, you know, another guy, say me and Bob, for example, who are like, we know exactly who we are as infinitely valuable soul, living, breathing soul beings with all the rights and freedoms this universe and our Creator gave to us simply for being born here. And this is a beautiful planet with beautiful people, and it's an amazing place to live, and we are happy and we are free. Power is never taken from people. You could say, oh my God, these banks, the IRS, they're taking all of my power away. Illusion. Power is given only by your consent. I will allow you to have my power. Would you like a side of French fries with that? Right? Or, I know who I am. I know my value. Nothing can touch me. I am bulletproof. Now, you might say, well, say that to the court guy when you're being charged for some phony crime. And I say, what happens when we all say, nope, done playing that game. Humanity has gone through these trials, these tribulations, these rites of passage, these phases of duality, polarity, light, dark, all these things, so we could get to this moment that we're at now. We've gone through it all. 2012, 2013, highly prophesized time. All the ancient civilizations said this time now is a time of great change. Infinite years of peace and prosperity to come. Personal empowerment. People remembering, people say this is a school of learning. It is not. It is a school of remembering. At our soul level, we know all. The great avatars, saints, and sages that have walked this earth just in the last few hundred years have shown us what it's like to know who you are and know your value. If you know who you are and you know your value, they might try to mess with you, but they can't touch you. I also don't pay my taxes. I don't pay my car registration. I don't have insurance. All fraudulent, corrupted systems. I challenged my car loan company. The people that sold me the car got paid. The people that built that car got paid. My dispute was with my bank. I said, show me the source of funds, 3 transactions deed with title, to prove that your loan is legitimate, and I will gladly pay you. Crickets. Nothing. What happens? Now, we're not here in this, doing this workshop and here at this conference to tell people, don't pay your taxes, and don't register your car, and don't do your insurance. That's the last thing that I want to do, actually. But what I'm here to do is I'm here to show people as a walking example of what it's like to know your power, to stand in a place of fearlessness. My fiance will tell you, babe, how often do I cry myself to sleep at night in fear that something as bad is going to happen to me?
That's comical. He's literally fearless.
Fearless. And I'm not bragging, but Bob will attest, and many of the other people that are on this tour, it's just a matter of knowing without fear. Without fear. Let it go.
So
Control
we can get into the spiritual
and
aspect
illusion
of this, on how your belief literally creates reality, right? But we probably won't have a lot of time to go
We still
down
have
that.
45 minutes.
Oh, okay. We can go down that rabbit hole. Literally, your belief creates your experiential reality, right? You are victimized when you feel like a victim. You know, why is there such a history with people when they are abused? You know, whatever kind of abuse that is, but there's a history. They're abused and re-abused and re-abused, right? And then you go back and you'll find that the same thing happened to their parents and then their parents' parents, and it becomes this generational thing because they're passing on a belief that the world is dangerous and it's filled with dangerous people around the corner. Somebody is going to grab your children, they're going to molest you, they're going to rape you, they're going to steal from you, right? And these fears we incorporate into our children, certain ideas. Now think about this idea. You need to earn a living. You've all heard this term before, and it's a belief that many people hold, that your life has no value of its own self. You need to earn a living. Isn't the fact that you were born here on this planet as a natural creature of Earth give you the right to be here? Why do you need to earn that right? No pain, no gain. Right? These are ideas and beliefs that that are instilled in us from childhood. The idea Money does not grow on trees. I'll tell you, this is paper. It literally grows on trees. But we've been, conditioned to believe things that just really are not true. And this is creating our experiential reality that we call the Matrix. And it is an illusion of control because it's created by your belief. It is operated and run and structured based on that belief and you following that belief. But once you change the belief, everything changes. Everything changes. Your experience changes. Your feeling of powerlessness. And it's a very pervasive feeling. How many people say, I'm only human? What? Only human? Do you know that the human being is the apex of universal technology? I'm only human. What difference can I make? Really? This is this pervasive perception of powerlessness. But once that gets changed, right? I am powerful. Me, alone, if I have to, can change the world. Just by being me. I don't owe anyone any explanation. I don't owe anyone, I do not need to earn my right to be here. My presence alone is my divine right to be here. And when you go from that place of power, everything in your experience changes. Because now you hold the power. When I asked the police officer the question, what makes you think that you have authority over me? Is it that gun? Because I have one too.
He doesn't really carry that.
I don't carry it, but I do have. What is it? And you remove that presumption, they are no longer in a place of power because now they have to answer your question or they have to dodge it.
The thing is that we've been so conditioned by society that we don't even realize that there's any conditioning there. We've been so programmed by society that we don't even realize that there isn't any programming that's there. Why? Because it's just the way things have always been done. So I'm scared, afraid, I don't know what's going to happen. If I try to create a new way, I could be punished by the law, by the courts, by the system, by the IRS, by the government, by the pharmaceutical company, by the banks, by the educational system, by the food system, whatever, right? But what happens when enough of us say, well, the power is in the numbers. We don't fight the system. I don't picket sign, stomping around. I have nothing against people that do strikes. I think that it's all, everything that's happening right now is an element and an aspect and the piece of the puzzle that brings about change. I don't judge anyone for where they are or what they do. But what I don't do is I don't fight the system. I just don't consent to it anymore. I say, is this system, was it designed for my best interest? I think we can all agree that they weren't. They were designed for someone's best interest. There's a reason why 60%, I think it is, of the world lives in poverty. No food, no shelter, no clothes, dying in the streets. But 1% of the population controls 99% of the wealth. There's obviously a problem with that. But the perception is, I'm only human. What can I do to make change? We are all a piece of what humanity allows humanity to exist. Without any one of us, we would all cease to exist because we are all made of the same stuff. We're all part of the same cosmic consciousness and oneness. Now, I don't want to preach, that's just what I believe. But every time we make a choice, and we stand in our truth, we know our value, and we know who we are, we affect the whole all the way through the cosmos. There's a thing called the 100th monkey. Anybody heard of it?
Glenda Green writes about it in Love Without End. The book. Yeah.
Exactly.
I am going to call 2013 the year of the 100th monkey. Because we're here. We're at that critical threshold where people are literally waking up in droves. This conference could not have anywhere near the numbers that it has today a year ago. We are in an accelerated period of awakening, and information is readily available. Don't take, like I said earlier, do not take our word for it. This information is no longer hidden. You can, every video we showed you was on YouTube.
The best university ever.
Yeah. YouTube University is free, and you can get a Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Ivy League education on YouTube. Ignorance at this point is a choice. Okay? I do not choose to be ignorant. I do not choose to be controlled. I do not choose to be governed. Right? I choose to be free. And that choice is a choice each and every one of us has to make. But based on truth. You make your decisions based on truth. Not on the perception of someone else's truth, not on illusion, not on sleight of hand, on transparent truth. And that's what we're trying to share with everyone. The truth of who you are. You are infinite value. And everything that this quote-unquote system of control operates is based on that value. And that value, you are the only one that has control over you. Your actions, your choices, and your experience. And it's time for people to take that control back. Because that's the only thing that you control. You control what you believe. You control your choices, your actions. And that's the only thing that you have entrusted to control. Anything outside of yourself, right? That's all an illusion. No one can change your mind but you.
Did you tell them the good news?
Oh yes, the good news.
Isn't it all good news?
The good news about all of this, and maybe to leave you feeling a little bit.
Well, we still have an half an
sorry,
hour, so we'll do
still have
questions,
half
and I got a couple more minutes.
And the good news is in December 2012, that entire system was legally foreclosed on. Those filings are available.
Wait, can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
As of December of 2012, legally and lawfully, the entire corporate system, Bank of International Settlements, Federal Reserve System, and the corporate governmental system was foreclosed on, legally and binding. Those filings are there and available for everyone to use. So when someone asks you, well, I represent blah, 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 wasn't that foreclosed on? Can you tell me, what about these filings right here? Are these real?
Where somebody said this to you.
Send it to Heather.
Heather.
Oh, so
Heather
it's
tried to
like-
go.
okay.
Heather tried to go to national media. National
Okay.
media said, "Nope, we're not touching this thing." So when we came out with it on my blog, a couple other blogs, a few radio shows, it went international in 48 hours. One People's Public Trust was, maybe mentioned on 3 or 4 websites. Over the course of the first 60 days, it jumped to 26 million. Our shows were translated into 25 languages at one time. Why did everybody care about this?
They've been waiting for it.
Because they've been waiting. And it affects and touches the lives of every man, woman, and child and soul, including those that created the systems, in every way imaginable. It got so popular and so widespread because people knew when they heard this initial interview that I did with Heather, and they read these filings, something jumped out and said, oh my God, this is the December 21st, 2012 that we've been waiting for. That day passed. Energetically, big shifts, nothing that people could sink their teeth into. People thought, well, you know, maybe it was an epoch of time, not a day. Nothing happened. But come the 26th of December 2012, something big did happen. And it's been snowballing ever since then. It's what has gotten me to the point where I have a voice where I can share it with people, like you in this room and many others from around the world that follow my blog and our radio shows, Bob as well. And the information is spreading. Why? Because it's in the hands of the people. With alternative media being as big as it is now, you don't need the mainstream media. Even those right-wing Republicans that once were big advocates of corporate media, Fox News, all that stuff, are like, holy shit, this news thing is just bonkers.
And that was their illusionary perception. The people have no power, they have no voice. It was their perception. That perception was dead wrong. We do have power, and we do have a voice. And we're using it in the way that's going to benefit all humanity. No more control, no more illusion.